again Cover to Cover, our guide for the Sikh and Punjabi books that you need to read. Before we look at this week's book, History of the Sikhs by J.D. Cunningham, let's take a look at another one of our viewers' favourite books.
My favourite book is The Case of Mary Bell by Gitta Sereny. Mary Bell was a small child from Newcastle, and she was convicted of manslaughter of two boys who were actually younger than her, and she was 11 at the time. So it's one of the first cases in the UK of children murdering other children. It's one of my favourite books because of the investigative nature that Gitta Sereny takes. And it also brings up themes that you wouldn't really talk about. So why is society nowadays inadequate to dealing with these kind of situations? And a prime example is Jane Bolger in Liverpool. So it's one of my favourite books. It's definitely worth reading, and that's The Case of Mary Bell by Gitta Sereny.
This week's book is History of the Sikhs by Joseph Davy Cunningham. Now, this is a work that was published in 1849, and as such was the first time that a historic work on the Sikh way of life had ever been published by a foreigner. Cunningham had gone to India with the East India Company in 1834 and had fought in the First Anglo-Sikh Wars. He had up-close and personal experience of the way that the Sikhs fought on the battlefields and the way that they lived their lives, and he took it upon himself to engage in research about the history of the Sikhs and how they had come to be. Now, despite the fact that he had served a distinguished career and had acted as a political agent under the infamous Sir Claude Wade, as soon as this book was published, unfortunately, Cunningham was actually removed from his official position and sent back to undertake regimental duty. This was seen as a massive disgrace at the time, and only a couple of years later, Cunningham actually passed away. It's widely considered that the disgrace that he had suffered after publishing this book hastened his death. It's for those reasons that every Sikh should know his name. Cunningham effectively gave up his career in order to go and research the Sikh way of life and publish it in this volume. Now, the book itself is not entirely accurate by our modern day standards, but for a book that was published in 1849 goes at great length to explain how Guru Nanak came to be and everything that happened from them until the reign of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. There are 9 principal chapters, and each chapter has a number of parts to it. Now, the formatting of this book is kind of a strange thing to get used to. You have margin notes in the side, you have extensive footnotes at the bottom. The margin notes, however, are actually quite helpful because they relate to the parts of the book that you are actually reading at that point in time, so they relate to that chapter. History of the Sikhs by J.D. Cunningham is the first serious account of the Sikh way of life and how we came to be who we are today. Yes, it's not 100% accurate, but it certainly is a great book, and it should inspire everyone to learn more about the history of the Sikh way of life. We want to know what you think, so please leave a comment below. Join us again for another Cover to Cover, our guide to the Sikh and Punjabi books that you need to read.